Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Amanda and we are here with a tutorial video. This is the first time I've done a tutorial in a while, so please bear with me, and if you have any tips or things that I've missed out that you want to know, then please tell me, and in the next tutorial I will definitely do it. I have recorded another one, so this is our tester one. The other painting I'm more happy to share with, but this one was just like a tester one, so we'll see. But anyway, I am using Holbein gouache paints and I'm using only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colours. I don't know if I add any more colours. I don't think I do. There's no red in this, but I'm using white, I'm using cadmium yellow or primary yellow, just a normal yellow. I'm using Naples yellow. I'm using ultramarine blue. I don't think it is actually ultramarine blue, maybe something else, but I'm using a blue, just a standard primary blue, and burnt umber. You don't have to use the exact same colours as me, just a kind of coolish yellow, a warm yellow, a white, a kind of cool warmy blue, I don't know if it's cool or warm, it doesn't matter what it is, and a burnt umber, like a dark brown. So those are the colours that I'm using, and we have already started, so let's get into that, shall we? I mixed the burnt umber with the blue and I popped that on at the top. I usually don't put that much water in my gouache. I'm very much a thick paint kind of person. Obviously wet enough to spread well, but not too wet where it takes so long to dry. It doesn't take that long to dry at all. So I've put that down, and then I've added a bunch of white to kind of blend it in to make the sky a little bit lighter at the bottom. Don't worry about that puff of smoke you just seen, it's fine, I vape. And I was doing that while I was painting this. Anyway, I added a little bit more white while the blue was still wet, so that it blended in with the blue a little bit to add a little bit of dimension. Usually I would leave a complete white gap where the clouds are going to be and then fill it in with white and then add dimension and different values and shading later, but I decided that it might be a good idea to do this so that it blended in with the sky and made it a little bit more like they were actually part of the sky rather than plopped on top of the sky. And I really like this technique. One of the techniques that I use when I am doing clouds is I will put down a bunch of different values and then I'll get a damp clean brush, very very dry, almost dry, but a little bit of water. I usually dip it in the water and then blot it off on a cloth or a rag or, you know, paper towel, whatever, and then I will blend it in. You'll see me do that as well eventually. So yeah, we're just adding in the clouds of it, and I'm leaving a little space at the bottom where the yellow grassy bit is so that I can put the yellow in, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm mixing a little bit of the Naples yellow together with the kind of lemony yellow colour, and I'm going in the middle to put the shadow parts in because it's a lot darker in the middle. I will leave the reference photo in the description below as well so that you can paint along with me if you want. I have sped up some parts just so that it's not too long for you. Anyway, then we add a little bit of white to make it a little bit lighter and put those on either side of the dark patch. Just adding in the colour, just covering all the white first. We don't want to add too much detail yet. We just want to make sure that all of the white on the page is covered, and then we can add details later when the gouache is dry. Just adding a little bit more yellow because I think the light was coming from the left side, so it's a bit lighter at this side. And just making sure that I do that. One of the problems I usually have is not mixing enough paint, but I try and remember in my head how much of each colour I have used, and I'm not too bothered about getting the same colour because usually in nature the colours aren't too similar and you have a lot of different colours and values in nature, so it's good to have a little bit of variety there, so it doesn't matter if you can't mix the exact same colour as long as you blend it in and dot it around and make the painting look like it's supposed to be like that. So just adding in more white to the clouds to make them stand out a little bit. And later on there's going to be a tree in front of the big patch of white, so I'm not too worried about putting too much paint there because I don't want it to reactivate and blend in with the tree once I put that in there. Just keep adding, and I'm using the technique where I dab. I'm getting a brush and putting a little bit of paint on it and dabbing it onto the paper so that it leaves kind of a textured feel. Then I'm getting a smaller brush and adding a line around the edges of the clouds and adding in some highlights here and there just to make it a little bit brighter and to make the clouds stand out a little bit from the background. I'm just using the dabbing technique here. I'm not painting, I'm not stroking, I'm just dabbing the paintbrush onto the paper a little bit. And obviously I use different techniques throughout as well, just depending on what it needs. Like here, I need to make sure that the white is in a concentrated spot, so you could use a bigger brush here if you wish and actually paint a stroke, or you could just use the little brush and just dab it wherever you think it could go. As you can see, I'm using different brush strokes to get different textures and different techniques like that. You just need to experiment to see what works for you, but usually I use tiny little strokes, and that's partly to do with the fact that I don't really paint on big paintings. I think this is A5 size, so it's not too big, and it means that you can do a lot more paintings and a lot more practice in a shorter amount of time. So I'm just adding a lot of white to the sides just to make sure it's quite concentrated. Again, I'm really sorry if I'm like being repetitive or missing out things. I'm just trying my hardest. I painted this a couple of weeks ago, so I'm trying to remember what I did and kind of watching it along with you. So yeah, but the thing that you got to think about with gouache is that it is paint that reactivates, so you got to be really careful with the way that you apply the paint and with letting it dry. If you let it dry long enough and you don't disturb it too much, once you put new paint on, it won't reactivate, but you can use the reactivation to your advantage and make sure that you want the paint to reactivate when you put a lot of water on top. It's a definite rule with oil that you do lean to fat rule, which means you use a lot more water in the first couple of stages of the painting and then you add more paint as you layer on top. And obviously, since I use quite thick paint already, I've got to make sure that I don't put too much water. Basically, all I'm doing is cleaning my brush off, and I use my rag a lot to dampen my brush, to make it more damp than wet, so that I can put my paint brush in the paint and not have it too wet. As you can see, there's no puddles of paint, it's just paint. I don't put a lot of water in my brush at all. Obviously you can do that and build up, but I prefer to do it this way just because I don't really know how to make it look good once I've put a wash on. And if I was going to put a wash on, I'd probably use watercolour just because of the way that gouache reacts when it's wet, and when it dries it's completely different, and I feel like it's quite patchy and it doesn't really lay down that well when it's really wet. A lot of people can get it to look good when it's wet, but I can't. So this is just the way that I like to paint. I prefer to have thick paint. It's probably because I'm really interested in painting with oil, and with oils you don't really have that much thick paint, or it's just the way that I've developed it. It doesn't really matter, I guess. Basically, I just like the way that I paint. So we're adding in the tree here. I've just got complete pure burnt umber and I'm sticking it in there, just following the shapes of the reference photo. I'm not paying too much attention to the reference photo because the way that I like to paint is I like it to look a little bit realistic, but not too realistic. So I'm kind of in the middle. It's not realistic and it's not cartoony either. It's somewhere in between, sort of semi-realism, semi-cartoon. So I'm not paying too much close attention to the actual reference photo, but I'm making sure that the tree is roughly the same shape and just adding in random lines for branches so that they can poke through the leaves. And then later on I'll go in and add the leaves, as you'll see soon. But I'm just building up the branches here, and I usually would go in with different colours and add in maybe a lighter brown, maybe some yellow to the paint for the branches, and add highlights and shadow. But with this, I just wanted to keep it really simple, almost kind of surrealistic, abstract. I don't know what type of painting it should be, but I didn't add too much detail to the branches. And anyway, in the reference photo, the tree does look very dark and it doesn't look like it's catching much sun anyway, so I just left it like that. So now we are putting in the paint for the leaves, and I mixed the Naples yellow and a little bit of the lemon yellow, I think, with the burnt umber to get a darker shade of yellow so that that can be the shadow side. And I told a lie earlier. I said the light was coming from the left hand side. It's not, it's coming from the right hand side, because I think I put a lot of the shadowed leaves on this side that I'm doing now. And for this, I'm just literally just tapping the paint onto the paper. I'm barely touching it, and this is so that I don't disturb the white and the blue underneath, because if you disturb the blue underneath, it's going to look green, and if you disturb the white, it's obviously going to look a lot lighter. So I'm making sure that I don't do that. I'm just twisting the brush and dabbing it on to get some weird natural leaf shapes. They don't have to look exactly like the leaves or at all like the leaves in the reference photo. I'm just dabbing it on just the way that I see fit, whatever way feels most comfortable to me. And I'm just going to go around the tree and kind of etch out the shape a little bit here, putting in some shadows where I see shadows, always looking at the reference, making sure that you can see where the shadows are and where you need to put the paint. And then I'm just also just making it up as I go along, trying to figure out what would look best for a painting perspective rather than just a photo, because photos can blow out pictures and make it look not like real life whatsoever. So I'm really happy with that. Then I'm adding in a little bit more Naples yellow and lemon yellow to lighten it up a bit, and this is our mid-tone, and I'm just putting that in the bits where I see that it's a little bit lighter but not too light. It's just the kind of local colour of the tree. Usually I would put the local colour in first and then put the shadows in last and then go over with a more local colour, but it actually obviously takes longer, so I've decided that from now on I have been putting in dark colours first, then the mid-tone, then the lights, and to make sure that I put highlights in. Again, putting in a little bit of a lighter shade here. I think I added a little bit more lemon yellow, and eventually we'll add white to add in the highlights. So we're just dabbing it on and leaving some spaces in between so that the clouds and the sky shows through, because yes, you can get really dense trees. I'm actually looking at trees outside just now, and there is a lot of gaps in between the leaves where you can see the sky in the background, so I'm emulating that in the trees here, making sure that you can see the background, because the leaves are not dense, they are speckled throughout the tree, and you can see in the background the little gaps basically. So we don't want to cover up that whole background. I hope I don't anyway. I hope I leave some gaps, because that would be not good. If I don't, then keep in mind this picture right here where you can see the gaps behind the trees, so that you can make it look a little bit more realistic and not like a big blob on the page. Here I am adding in some white to make the highlights, and I might add in some more lemon yellow. I would have to brighten it up. No, I didn't. I would have. It is me. I'm watching myself do it. But this is just to add a little highlights, and obviously the light is coming from the left-hand side, no, the right-hand side. So I'm putting in more concentrated lights in the top and left-hand side of the tree. Obviously added in a little bit on the right hand side where the leaves might catch, and then I decided that it wasn't dark enough, so I added some more burnt umber and put some more on the other side, so that I added a little bit more shadow. And I'm just going back and forth, adding in lighter shades and darker shades until I finally decide that I'm happy with it. And I'm using a tiny brush now because I'm going to do the grass, or I don't even know if it's grass, but whatever is on the ground. So we're doing little spikies. We're getting a really small brush, and I don't think I like this brush, so I got a longer bristled brush. A liner brush would be perfect for this. I couldn't find my liner brush. I think I actually have it in my watercolour kit instead of my gouache kit, so that's why I couldn't find it, but we found one anyway. And I'm just adding in that burnt umber Naples yellow mix and just adding in some little lines here and there to create the shadowed part of this. And then I'll do the same as I did with the leaves. I'll just add in some mid-tones and some highlights just to make sure that it looks depthful. I struggle a lot with grass to make it look natural, but the trick is that the darker bits need to be bigger and the mid-tones need to be smaller than the darker bits, and then the lighter bits need to be even smaller than the mid-tone bits. So you're always getting more and more detailed as you bring in the highlights so that you can get that dimension and that value in there. So yeah, just looking at the reference, seeing where it is. I don't think I pay that much close attention to it, but I am concentrating the darker bits in the middle where that shadow was. And then I'm going to add in the mid-tones eventually and then just keep building it up from there. It looks very like static. I think that I definitely need to practice more on how to add in grass. I think I might do a little series where I practice grass just to see what kind of things I can do to make it look good. One thing I will say about gouache and about painting in general is that it looks better the less colour shifts you do. So if you want to have a lighter colour next to a darker colour or on top of a darker colour, you should just add in the tiniest little bit of the lighter colour. So say you want a green to look a little bit more yellow, adding in the tiniest little bit of yellow to the mixture that you already have and putting it on top is much better than mixing a brand new yellow and trying to put that on top, because it will look out of place. So yeah. Also, this is kind of off topic, but one of the things that I hate about people that do landscapes, and don't get me wrong, art is subjective. If you like the look of it, then do it. If you want to do it, then do it. But it really grinds my gears when I'm watching TikToks or Instagram reels and people are painting landscapes and they use a viridian green, like a really bright, saturated greeny blue, and use that for the grass like that. You rarely get that in nature. Obviously you do get it some places, especially tropical areas, but most of the time it's more olivey, yellowy greens than bluey greens. So just keep that in mind. Try and keep your landscapes natural. Obviously, if you want to add in, I would love to be able to do that actually, like just add in random pops of colour in the grass, like make some of the grass pink and purple and blue. But that's just not the way that I paint naturally. It just comes natural to me to paint naturally rather than weird colours. But yeah, please stay away from greens and bluey greens. But it's off topic because there's no green in this either, which is weird. It's a landscape. Who paints landscapes that don't have any green in it? I don't know. Not me. Obviously me. Anyway, I thought that the tree could use a little bit more highlight, so that's what I'm doing just to finish it up here. Just adding in all the things, and then we're gonna peel it off and show you the finished result. That was a quick one, wasn't it? I did speed it up. This took me about an hour-ish, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. I don't know. I can't remember how long it took me, but it took me a while. And obviously, one thing that I forgot to mention is to leave, well, I did mention it a little bit, but definitely try and leave your paint to dry before you add in new layers. But yes, that is the finished product. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did paint it, let me see it on Instagram. Tag me at ALLJArt or Twitter at the same name. Facebook, I'm all over the social medias if you want to check that out and follow me and tag me if you do this painting. I would love to see how it came out, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.